This is a call for vengeance. Welcome to today's show. If you haven't heard, Chile has been set ablaze. Yet another country or another location where there just happens to be a very convenient forest fire in a place that is opposed to what they're trying to bring in, which is a globalist government. Now, I'm going to break this down so you could understand it because it's pretty scary, but it's also a blueprint for what they're doing all around the world with countries that are resisting to go along with new constitution, globalist constitutions, which is what just occurred in Chile, like we saw in Turkey with the earthquake. It's very, very frightening. But let me start, if you haven't seen what happened, by showing you a news clip where this is Chile's president, GL0BALIST, who is just another one of these guys you could look at. You know he's a weak male, a prick, one of these puppets that they've put in place to bring about green energy, to change the whole constitution, the whole setup of Chile. And of course, what happened in Chile when he was put in office is very similar to what's happening all around the world right now. We saw it in Brazil. We've seen it in America. The civilians are suspicious of the elections because there's no way that these people are actually winning elections. Now, all the elections are rigged anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But they're doing the same blueprint with these elections where people are questioning the elections, and then they're trying to frame the people who are opposed to the election, who are questioning the election as terrorists. It's the same exact thing in America all around the earth right now. So listen to this news clip of what happened in Chile, and look at the president who comes out on national TV after the fires and talks about how arson was likely set. That's right, arson. So they can't even blame climate change because the footage you see is it's so unbelievable. You could just tell that it was torched, that this was not climate change wildfire. So whatever reason, some arsonists just decided they wanted to murder hundreds of people and set fires that even an arsonist could not possibly set by burning house after house. Nobody caught him. Nobody saw him dumping lighter fluid. I mean, give me a break. Listen to this nonsense.
Visiting a rural community ravaged by wildfires, Chilean President Gabriel Boric consoled residents, promising aid to thousands of affected families. He also addressed fears of arson.
We have appointed a colonel for each county who will be in direct contact with the mayors, who will tell them exactly which area needs special patrolling. We know that improving a sense of security is very necessary to prevent uncivilized behavior of miserable people.
Residents here say they're still in danger after surviving last weekend's wildfire.
Last night we discovered a tree trunk on fire. It didn't catch on fire by itself. It happened right when two strangers were seen roaming the entrance after curfew.
Navy Special Forces are being deployed on land and air on the lookout for arsonists who are suspected of having started a wildfire last Friday that destroyed entire neighborhoods.
There's still a lot of questions as to how and why the worst natural disaster in Chile since the 2010 earthquake took place. The government is asking the European Union for assistance because of its expertise in wildfires, especially in highly populated areas. But the people who live here say that there are other things that need to be taken into account.
They're referring to an incentive to burn land.
Everyone can see that whatever forest or agricultural land has been ravaged by wildfires, soon after the land is sold for housing projects. First the fire, then the sale of the lots.
I asked the Deputy Interior Minister about the allegation.
For some time there's been a bill in Congress that would declare areas impacted by fires ineligible for building projects. It's unacceptable that there be a perverse incentive for wildfires to benefit private economic interests.
Others are pushing for the government to increase penalties and try arsonists as terrorists. Whatever the cause or the motivation behind these fires, the outcome has been deadly.
So yes, of course, arson was really done, but it was done from a direct energy weapon, and it was done by the guy right on screen there, the president of Chile. Now, listen to this bizarre story, which isn't so bizarre if you actually start connecting the dots, that happens to happen at the same time as this massive catastrophe, which was done by design. Former president of Chile, Sebastian Pinera, dies in a helicopter crash. So this fire set ablaze. They know people are going to be suspicious. And at the same time, a helicopter was just flying the former president of Chile crashes into, I believe they said it crashed into the ocean. It crashed and he didn't survive. So he's dead. You know, this goes on. I mean, don't be suspicious, right? A wildfire that they're saying is set by arson because they can't even blame climate change. The former president of this country for, you know, a couple of reigns, at least a couple of regimes, dies in a helicopter fire. And then when they're starting to blame arson, look at these other stories that are surrounding Chile, not to mention the fact that Chile has a direct tie-in with the World Economic Forum. Because who do you think selected and put this guy in place? Because all this guy's trying to do is take Chile and redo Chile, remove gun rights, remove natural gas. This is all the same blueprint, right? So at the same time, all this stuff is going on, okay? They just attempted to put in a new constitution in Chile. That's right, a new constitution. And what did the civilians say, the people? They rose up against it. They said, we don't want a new constitution. We reject this. This is garbage. This is total government overreach. We don't want to give control of our lives to the government, which is what everybody's trying, you know, to fight against. So Chile rejected a second attempt to renew the constitution, okay? And it's a left-wing dominated constitution that they're trying to write up. So they're saying that at least 60% of people in Chile rejected it. The country got, you know, and then, of course, what happened? Gabriel Boric came on TV and he said the country got divided. He said the result shows the process didn't channel the hopes of having a new constitution written by everyone. Of course, this constitution won't be written by everyone. They'll do the same blueprint in America. I'm talking about destroying the constitution as you see them destroying the whole government setup here. I mean, even just with Mayorkas, it's something I can cover in a separate video. But here in America, they were talking about impeaching the guy who's responsible for all this stuff at the border, supposedly, right? He's the fall guy scapegoat. You know, Mayorkas. And of course, the Republicans are so discombobulated, they can't even impeach him properly, right? Just like the stuff with Biden summoning and speaking about having conversations with the French president who's been dead for 30 years. They're just, you know, showing you incompetency, trying to say, hey, this whole thing's messed up. We got to start over, and setting us up for an attack, obviously. So the attacks they're using are direct energy weapons. They're using all sorts of weaponized weather in California they're wiping out. And a common thing that I see people asking and saying is, are they rejecting it? Are Californians rejecting the World Economic Forum's globalist plan? Is Chile rejecting it? Well, the civilians may be rejecting it, which is why they're wiping them out. I mean, Turkey just went through the same thing, and they wiped out pretty much the entire region. Okay, they just demolished homes. They killed everybody off. Then they come in with bulldozers. They don't turn the cameras on for that, because there's a smart city, a smart, you know, prison cell is going to pop up in these locations. So the civilians disagree. This guy goes around and says arson. What's next? They're going to come out and find the guy. Let me guess. The president is saying that it's an arsonist. So we can all see the blueprint, right? We're going to find out that it's a conservative right-wing conspiracy theorist, probably named Lee Harvey Oswald or possibly George Glass, who was listening to conspiracy theories online, who hated, you know, had whispers and mentioned and liked posts against the World Economic Forum. It'll be the same blueprint, because every one of these stories has the same blueprint, building up what a terrorist is in the mind of the zombies out there. Anyone who's opposed to globalism is a terrorist threat, and they're willing to burn. Meanwhile, the government's responsible for doing all of it. And these people are too dumb to realize who's responsible for this quote-unquote sabotage, which is exactly what it is. So they're pretty much telling you, if you don't go along, if the civilians don't go along with their globalist constitution, which would be the removal of free speech, putting in hate speech laws, of course, not telling you it's about taking away free speech, telling you it's about being nice and kind, and all these suckers believe it, removal of guns so that the civilians are screwed and can't arm up against these psychopaths. And eventually everybody's going to wake up and realize that they're enslaved, including people of color, people of gay people. Everybody who thinks that this whole thing is to protect them is going to realize that they were just duped with duping delight. And it's going to be too late. And all the civilians are going to be unarmed. And again, they use the military against us, which is a big problem. You know, everyone's like, oh, well, the military. They think of the propaganda commercials about how the military is there to serve us. I've covered this for years, okay? And I know a lot of you out there probably are in the military, but the military goes through, you know, basic MK Ultra mind control programming. It's not, you know, the type that you see on national television, but they're put through trauma-based mind control in a sense with all the stuff that they put them through. It's not just to train them with physicality. It's to mentally beat into them that, you know, they're servants of the government, and the government can do no wrong, and they're the arm of the government, and it gets go on and on and on. And then these people start believing in the globalist ideologies. They don't even realize it. And they don't realize that they're being turned on the civilians, and then they start planting in their head that the civilians are the enemy. They're not training the military and saying, hey, we're going to kill all the civilians in the country you're supposed to protect. Otherwise, they would snap out of it. They're training them like Manchurian candidates, and then they're starting to tell them, oh, here's don't think about this, don't think about that. This is the job you have to do. Don't get your emotions involved. They're a threat to the government. Your job is to protect the government. Thus, they have this military all armed up against all of us, all the citizens around the earth right now. Okay? So I know everyone out there is like, well, and it doesn't mean if you're an ex-military, what do you think they have PTSD from? They have the PTSD from forms of trauma-based mind control. Okay? People are like, well, they saw guns in Afghanistan and this and that. They go through, literally go through trauma-based mind control to be soldiers in the military. Okay? That's what happens to them. And I'm not, attacking them. I'm just telling you how it actually is. So if you're an ex-military guy and you know what's going on, that's great. You're going to be very needed and useful for everything that's coming on. But I mean, they have a massive military with massive technology, which leads me back to Chile. Okay? Direct energy weapons are real. Okay? Everybody out there should know this. I've covered the clips. I've shown you clips before from Maui where we can all see that they have the ability to use, go up in a jet and literally just shoot a beam down and fry places. Now, there's probably a lot of footage out there because people reuse footage, put it out there on purpose so that they want people like me to take these clips and say, look, this is what happened in Chile. And then they go, well, that clip was from 2010. We fact check it. They want you to do that so that people just automatically dismiss the story. So I'm not going to go through and look at any of these clips where you're seeing beams from the sky, but there are things that have been uploaded, but it doesn't matter. All you need to do is look at the damage that's caused. A regular wildfire could not do that, let alone arson. Okay? It's arson in a sense because the government's responsible for setting the fires. So yeah, you want to call it arson, call it arson. But they want you to think that some guy grabbed gasoline and grabbed lighter fluid and matches, a bunch of people who were just so anti-liberal, anti the new constitution, and they went around and instead decided to burn civilians' homes to the ground. Huh? Oh, they didn't decide to go and burn, Borik's home to the ground. Gabriel Boric, the guy responsible for trying to pretty much upend the entire, their way of life. No, they went to just some regular guys' home who have kids, who don't care, who know nothing about what's going on. And they were like, well, we're going to send a message and just light their homes on fire. Huh? Of course it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't have to make sense, right? Now, we know they could set these false flags around the Capitol buildings, etc. But they come out so fake, the footage, etc. anyway. But they want to wipe these people out. So they wipe them out. They blame it on a boogeyman. And eventually the boogeyman will have all the same things that we always hear. He's a conspiracy, they're a group of militia, a group of conspiracy nuts. At the same time, while in this country, I talked about in a previous video, the bill that they're trying to pass, Bill H.R. 6981, which is a bill all the countries are trying to pass, which civilians are not allowed, to form. The key wording in it is more than 3 people getting together in any type of protest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So they're going to probably frame this group as a militia group that started the fires with no real, what the purpose was, they were just so angry, right? Like not thinking like, oh, okay, they're going to go to jail or get killed for the rest of their lives. So they might as well just set civilians' homes on fires instead of going after the people that they really hate. I mean, of course it makes no sense, but the people out there, all they need to do is hear the government propaganda on the television and they won't think any further than that. So when we look at the fire there, we obviously can see it's a direct energy weapon. They can't even deflect on the narrative and talk about, well, maybe it was actually global warming because it's so legitimately like, the stuff we saw in Maui, they were surprised, I think, at the feedback, so they just buried the story, right? Then you can go to the other stuff with the World Economic Forum in Chile. Because since this guy has been placed in power, okay, which they wanted this guy in. The whole story behind this guy is he was one of the people. He was going to protest, a political activist who became president. It's kind of like the Zelensky propaganda that they use, right? They want you to think he's an everyday man, that he's someone like you who protests, who doesn't like what's going on. He's going to make change, right? And he's going and telling you he's going to rewrite the Constitution. So it's unbelievable. The World Economic Forum even has stuff on their website. Chile's becoming a leader in renewable energy. Chile has set an ambitious goal of converting 70% of its total energy consumption to renewables by 2030 and pledged to become carbon neutral by 2050. The country's energy transition strategy has evolved in recent years due to a combination of blah, blah, blah. Its renewable energy strategy could serve as a playbook for industrialized countries in Latin America and abroad. This is a playbook, all right? The playbook says this: if you don't go along with their enslaved electric vehicles, their enslaved smart homes and smart cities, they will set you on fire, okay? And they're going to set you on fire anyway because none of us have access to what this blueprint looks like. So just, look at in your head, close your eyes and envision the Earth, right? Just a flat piece of paper with all the continents on it. Doesn't matter what you think the shape of the, just all the continents, okay? They obviously have X's where they're specifically going to begin the rollout of these cities where they think they could safely do it, where people will be on board to do it. And then in other places where they want to obviously have these smart cities so that they can have control of any nearby resources, right? So we can look at places like Chile. Someone would say, well, why would they want, Chile, et cetera? Well, first of all, they want Latin America. They got a guy that they can control in there, a guy who's obviously willing to commit genocide for these people. Now, it doesn't mean that he pulled the switch, because these people all in their own minds don't think the blood's on their hand. And of course, Freemasons and all these secret societies, what are they taught? They're taught that this is in the books of these specific people with big noses that love bagels. They talk about how, if it's done in a way like this, well, they're not really directly responsible, so they don't need to feel responsible for it because they didn't pull the switch on the blade. Some Manchurian candidate pilot pulled the switch on the DEW, right? Probably multiple direct energy weapons that were shot down. Fried it immediately. Boom, boom, boom. People over in Chile are already being silenced from talking about it because it's the same thing we see over in Maui. And I mean, these are the types of things that, that it's like, what control do you have over it, right? I mean, these psychopaths are using people that they've put through trauma-based mind control who are literally, like I've talked about, mind control slaves of these people. They will do whatever their bidding is because they're given an order. That's their job. They're given an order. And if they don't do it, somebody else will step in and do it because there's sick people and there's mind control people who will listen and obey and who are convinced that what they're doing is in the best interest of the globalists, right? And again, like I was saying about Freemasonry, it's all about what's in the best interest of the brotherhood. They don't care what has to, because they look at it and they say, if people have to die for this to come in, for the betterment of humanity, then they have to die. That's their mindset. And they're so sick in the head, which, they really are psychopaths to a T. I mean, this is the definition of it. It's worse than that. They're sinister psychopaths, okay? They look at it as enslaving people is in what's their best interest for them. While they live away from this stuff, while they don't have restrictions on life, while they control the food, they control the resources, etc. And a lot of the people out there are so dumbed down that they think that this is fine until all of a sudden they are affected by it. It's going to be too late. These people out there who laugh, who are on their phone, who listen to videos like mine, they're like, that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. They act as if we're saying it's going to happen, tonight at 6 o'clock. Okay, this has been a build to this for decades, and we're close to the finish line. Agenda 2030 is their blueprint. Okay, a lot of this is going to be in place by 2030. And what do you think all this stuff with Trump and Biden, the civil unrest, and all these countries are under civil unrest? All of them. Because they're doing this on purpose, right? We look at the Communist Manifesto. Civil war is needed. Civil division is needed. They need these people to be led by fake revolutions, fake revolutionaries, fake figures who are compromised like Trump, like, Ted Cruz, DeSantis in America. These are just some of the names. And then the celebrities like Elon Musk, Kanye. This is all done strategically, okay? They wouldn't be going forward with it if they didn't have total control over everyone. They would wait. There's really nothing that can be done about their plans except trying to survive and come out on the other side. So back to the story, and I'll cover that on my podcast in more detail for people who are like, okay, what do we got to do to prepare? You should know at this point, but we'll go through all that stuff on the podcast. So back to the story. Chile is fried. Okay, Chile is set ablaze. And they're saying, hey, we think it might be an arsonist. Meanwhile, Chile is in bed with the World Economic Forum as of this new president going into power. Chile's former president, Sebastian Pinera, just mysteriously dies in a helicopter crash while this fire is occurring, okay? While we hear about Chile becoming the leader in renewable energy, because that's really what it's about. Renewable energy means enslavement. Okay, you hear all this stuff, you're like, oh, it sounds like it's nice for the environment. Da-na-na-na-na. Ooh, birds chirping. It's propaganda. It's enslavement. Literally. Okay, they're going to be able to flip a switch and turn off your electricity. Do you want that? You're like, oh, they won't do that to me. Yes, they will. And when it happens, you still, because you've been built in with such narcissistic traits, you'll never admit that you were wrong about it. You'll just say it's something else because they'll tell you that you're letting them turn. They'll convince you that, they're turning the power off because you're a good person and you want it off for a couple hours a day. And that's not a lot of sacrifice, right? And it's going to go from a couple hours to 6 hours to 10 hours to days on end without electricity. They'll let you take a You're a prison. You're in a prison. So this guy, the Chile president, who again was trying to put in, that's the other thing you got to remember. He was trying to literally put in a new constitution and the people were rebelling against it. The people don't want it. Does it sound familiar with Maui? trying to get people to sell their land, giving them triple the price of their land, get off the island. We're not getting out of here. The same people that we're not going along with it, right? His approval rating and all this stuff, which I don't really believe in approval ratings, but I do believe in listening to people. And I don't believe in the propaganda they put out there. This guy was not elected, and people out there don't believe he was elected. And we've seen this in other countries where people like Biden are getting put in. And now they're starting to reveal, hey, it's rigged, because they're trying to get people into the states they want them to get them into. And that's what I fear, is that when you're sitting in these conservative states, you know how quickly they could hit you with a direct energy weapon? Okay, what are you going to do, right? You're sitting ducks for them because you're not going along with it. You go along with it, or they set you ablaze. Otherwise, we got to figure out ways to get around this or infiltrate. There's lots of things we need to discuss, but this is just horrific. You pray for the people in Chile. I mean, you just wake up and your life is ruined. It could happen to any one of us. You wake up, you could see a beam in the sky setting your home on fire, killing you and your children and your animals. Absolute psychopaths. And they get away with it. Oh, an arsonist said it, right? And then everyone's going to go, oh, an arson man. Who's the arson man? Oh, it's George Glass. And they'll go, oh, really? And they'll go, oh, man, what? Well, he was a conspiracy theorist. He was online reading about all this stuff with the World Economic. Oh, okay. Right? And they believe it. Like suckers. Same narrative, same story. The CIA is really lacking with the stories, but they're not. Because they know how the brain works, and they know they'll believe whatever they say, hook, line, and sinker. So this is the new blueprint, folks. Again, we're going to see more direct energy weapon hits, and we're going to see these stories. Always look at the stories surrounding it. Okay, look at Chile, the president dying in a helicopter. Nobody believed that this guy, new guy, was elected and put in. He's extremely liberal. He wants to rewrite the Constitution. He wants full-on gun bans. They all want the same stuff, right? Oh, because they all care so much about the civilians. Because, what happens when there's murders via knife? Because I hear a lot of, horror stories about, knives, like Michael Myers, right? What about that? You going to take Michael's knife away? Oh, that will be next, right? But we start with guns because they're most threatened by guns because people could do all sorts of things with those. They have to get really close with a knife. But, these people just hear that stuff. They're like, oh, guns cause deaths. And it's like, so do knives, right? So do rocks. Sometimes fists can cause it, and they'll eventually work all that stuff in. So literally humans just live in a metaverse in their cells because they won't even want to have interactions with other humans. So that's where we're headed, folks. Prayers for people in Chile. Thanks to everybody who's here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.